and you're anxious, you're frightened, you're on your heels. Dust is swirling. Lights, cameras, action. Why, it's too much to ask for one person. What am I talking about? Why, it's the Advent season leading into Christmas, and Christmas means buying a bunch of stuff for a bunch of people, most of which we don't like anyways. But we have to do it. We have to give the illusion that we love them. Well, here's the good news for those of you who are tapped out, don't have any dough. Those of you who don't know how to come up with something new and fresh for that person that has everything. Well, you don't have to go any further than just getting yourself a computer and a little like button and a little ability to do just a tiny bit of techno. Copy and share to all your friends who need more gifts and more light in this special season. What's the ultimate gift? What am I getting at? Does it need wrap? Bows? Boxes? No. Just needs a computer and your finger. Sharing! Brad Stine Has Issues. Oh, what more could a fellow want? It's me, God's comic, Brad Stine, and this is Brad Stine Has Issues. I don't know if you know this, Wyatt, but this is where conservatism, comedy, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity. And Wyatt, I always mix up the cuz. The words should be similar, should be the same, but then I screw up because I try to memorize it, Wyatt, and I fail.
Yeah, I know it. The question is, do you know it?
No, that's what I do. I know it, but I mess up I get the words.
If you mess it up, do you really know it then?
Well,
you may as well be reading off cue cards.
I should. And listen, you are my producer, so if there are a need for cue cards, who is responsible?
Staples. I think they sell oversized cue cards.
Do they have cue cards? And are they like? Are they? You're also making noises again, Wyatt. Are we starting right off the bat with you going click, clock? Are you hitting your, is that what you're, see what he does, folks, is this. By the way, this is God's Comic, Brad Stine. If you're brand new to the podcast, fear not, because guess who's number one to say hi? Why? Everybody knows it's Gianna Sizemore.
Well, in the spirit of the Ween, the Christmas, the spirit of Christmas, I thought this was October for some reason. Don't ask me why.
Maybe your calendar dyslexic. Your calendar dyslexic, Wyatt.
In the spirit of Christmas, Saint Nick was first on mine.
What? Saint Nick is back?
He's back in full force.
He has retrieved his sainthood. And let me guess, pull up the rear, dragging her a little behind. Karen Boyd.
Jenna Sizemore.
Wow, that's who's number one for me. So the only one I missed was Nick, but nevertheless, she showed up. So at least we're getting closer to synchronizing my access to my podcast with you.
Well, we're not the ones synchronizing it. It's Facebook that's having the problem.
Oh, you're always blaming Facebook.
They're the ones who are responsible for showing the thing for you to click to get on the stream in the first place.
Why, Clara Beatty, you know her, you love her, you've always asked me about her. Well, guess what? She said, hey, Brad and White. Emily Smith made it finally. You know where she's been, right? She was in the Iditarod. She had her first group of dogs. She was on a sled. She started it last June, got lost, I think, within 3 minutes into a ditch, and she ended up in Russia in a prison, obviously, because she crossed over, no papers. Well, she has been doing some hard time, mining gems, I think, or silicon, I forget what they have. They got a silicon mountain over there. Anyways, it's forced labor, clearly. It's Russia. She just got back, and she's saying hi to us. Why? Because she's not going to make a big deal about it. She's not going to sit there and say, oh, poor me. No. She's not no Brittany Griner. She gets out of Russia and then she just acts like nothing happened because that's the American way. Why? Do you have any problem with that?
All that setup, all that build up, 2 whole minutes.
Yeah.
And that's the payoff?
It is a payoff. Hey, listen, she might send us some of the gems she mined in Russia. If she was smart, she hid them on her person. I'm not going to say where. It is a family show. Wyatt.
It was no. That tirade was like an aristocrat's joke that never gets to the punchline. It's just nothing. It's just awful.
Yeah. Oh, you know the aristocrat?
Of course I know the aristocrat's joke.
You realize that is the dirtiest joke in human history.
Well, it's designed to be the dirtiest joke. Like, that's the joke itself.
Speaking of dirtiest jokes, Carmen Boyd came in. Hello, Brett. Hi, Wyatt. All with a clap, clap, and a heart, heart. Louis Leon's here. James Lyon. Hi, Brett. Erin Dent. There she is, Plano, Texas. And you know what? It's called Plano, Texas. But you know what? In some ways, I think they named it that because Texas is humble. And they don't like to draw attention to themselves. So it's kind of their way of saying, you know, it's just Plano, Texas.
So basically, you wanted to recycle your terrible joke from the last one because it was so good that first
Recycled.
Yeah, the whole, they're humble. They don't want anyone to draw attention to themselves. It's literally the punchline to the
what?
To that person whose name I totally remember. Russia, mining, terrible setup you had.
Jan Sizemore?
Yeah.
Good evening, folks. Brad and Wyatt. Brian Winkler's here. Hey, Wyatt. Carrie Tudor says, hey, Wyatt. She calls you Wyatt, Wyatt. Well, is it because why? Be honest.
I don't know. I'm too busy trying to figure out. So Jenna Sizemore said that you don't need cue cards. Yeah. But she spelled it the letter Q. So how do you pronounce it? Is it Q? Or is it Q? What's the spelling? Is it Q or Q?
It's Q.
Oh, not Q?
No, Q. Why? Clearly it's Q.
Well, I'm just sorry, but when I first learned it, it was Q. And now you're telling me it's Q?
Listen, if you said it was cue cards, it would be confusing because the industry standard is cue cards. It's always been that way since the 50s when television first started. That's the ones that first started using.
But this is the modern era. Why can't it be cue card?
Because they want to have... There's some things in cinema, in film, in television that retains a certain historical quality. So yeah, we've got all this highfalutin technology that probably could move us from cue cards to cue cards. But guess what? We can't move there, son, because you don't know how to run any of our highfalutin equipment. That's why you're sitting here standing there holding your iPhone.
And then as if on cue,
Gina
Sizemore hits us with another spelling. Q.
She's like that. She keeps us on our toes. Sherry Holtz Jordan said, from Minnesota, receive notice now instead of immediately upon you going on air. Love hearing from you. Erin Dent's here. Well, we've always said that. I sure love her. Let's see. Debbie Pearl. Hi, sir. And she screamed it at me. Why do they scream at me, White? I can hear.
Really? Are you sure?
Forrest Bainey enjoying our first snowstorm. Have a great show tonight, Brad and White. Carrie Hathaway, hi from Everett, Washington. Hi, Carrie. Rebecca Daly Dwyer, hello from Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. Hello to Wyatt also. She always says that. Brenda K. Marlowe's here. Bill Atwood from New Mexico. Debbie Prell. Hello from North Carolina. Again, a yeller. Doing dishes while listening to you all. That's Gina Sizemore. So we've already talked to her. Clark Berg. He's from Leesburg, Florida. Wyatt, you ever been to Florida?
Yeah, I have, actually.
What do you think about it? Be honest. Don't lie to me. Not at Christmas time, White, because Santa knows when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good. So don't lie, for goodness sake.
Wow, you almost got it right. Almost. Good effort. Right. So, as for what I thought of Florida, if I had to sum it up in one sentence, alligator is not that much different than regular meat.
Oh, yeah, you did have alligator meat.
Yep.
And didn't we see that on a TV show?
Yes, we did.
What was that show called?
Was it Man vs. Food, or was it something else?
Maybe, but it was. But we saw. We said we got to go try it.
Yeah, it was one of those food channels of just going everywhere and trying cool stuff.
You know Danny Herring, right?
Of course.
You know where she holds up?
No.
In a bunker. She lives in
Idaho.
Canada, for God's sake, Lord.
Well, Idaho's the Canada of America.
That's true. Anyways, she said she's trouble with transmission for me tonight. Starlink in the bunker's failing me. Let's see. Let's see. Paul, she's here.
Who?
Paula Faye Marie Rauchi, my favorite four-named lady. Cue cards, cue balls. Anyways, she's here. I'm excited for it. I love it.
Yeah, it seemed like you were so ready to like hear what she had to say, and then you're like, oh, it's just 2 words. Okay, moving on.
Well, I like it when she shows up. I like it because she's an old fan. See,
Yeah.
there's a handful of folks that show up every Monday. The rest of the people get wise and abandon us.
Listen, not everyone is as quick a learner as those ones. In time,
Yeah.
they will realize the error of their ways.
Yeah.
But until then,
Right.
let's at least pretend to try to be entertaining
Yes.
for their sake.
Hey, you know what? Brian Winkler showed it me. You know, he said Florida equals if you're not a beach bum or Disney nut, there's nothing there except the largest ant farm on the planet. Wyatt, you would love an ant farm. Why?
So, like, what do ants grow? Like wheat? So, do they grow like corn or like I'm sorry, maize? Because all I know is that ants are scavengers, aren't they? They just sort of steal other people's food.
You know what? That's one thing. And you know one other thing. Ants, if you haven't noticed, they don't get a lot of press anymore. They've been laying low, and it's because they are considered, no longer to be admired. They are disparaged. They are maligned, and they are ridiculed.
Yep.
Because guess what they are, Wyatt? And they're known for this
audience,
historically.
prepare yourself for this bombshell. What are they?
Colonizers.
Interesting. Very interesting. That... I won't say it's your worst material, but it is certainly not your best.
Well, listen, if anybody says anything about colonizers, like that's what they say, oh, Columbus was, America's and everybody's a colonizer, except for every other country that colonizes other people. Then suddenly it doesn't matter.
You know what? I'm sorry. I pressed the wrong button as the answer to your joke. Let's call it that. Can I try again real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Something, you say a terrible joke, and then... There we go. That's better.
I didn't know we had a wah, 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 wah.
I've been saving the wah wah wah.
Oh, my gosh. Why? Did I tell you ants are colonizers?
Gets them every time.
That's amazing. Well,
Modern
listen, I
tech-
hope we can keep that up. Folks, I got to tell you, if you're a first-time watcher, and that which means you'll be a last-time watcher, there's only 7 people that could watch on a regular basis. But if you are, you need to know that voice you hear is my son Wyatt. Wyatt shows up. He works at Lowe's for the big money. I can't pay him that much. To me, this is a charitable foundation. And I've been charitable to the man. I've given him as much as I can afford. Trust me. I don't get paid, by the way, for this. I don't know if you're aware of that. I could have, but I give it to my son because, well, he works at Lowe's. Wyatt, last week you were telling me, and for those of you who don't understand the hardware business, it's much more interesting, much more intriguing than most people give it credit for. It could also almost be like a reality show. The people that work at Lowe's come and go. Clearly, they can't keep a staff there, and we all know that. But there's always those handful of folks that stick around. You're one of them. And it makes for interesting banter for you to survive and get through it without wanting to slit your wrist. So here's what's interesting. And by the way, if you needed to slit your wrist, blades would be on.
IO 68,
IO
Bay
60.
5.
That's right, Bay 5. Anyways, here's what's interesting.
Did I know that?
No, I think it's wonderful. We all appreciate it. Now, do you think it's that nationwide? If I went to Florida, for example, ate some gator, headed over to Lowe's, would I find blades on L68 Bay 5?
Yes, you will. However, IO 68, Bay 5 will be on the exact other side of the store. It's mirrored.
Wow.
For some reason, our store is mirrored.
Really? From every store in the whole place, or just...
From every store that I've been to.
Wow.
It's weird. I don't get it.
Wyatt, is it an alternative universe?
No, apparently it's, apparently they decided that we were doing so well that they wanted to just completely redo the entire layout of the store.
Wyatt.
For no reason other than they could.
If your Lowe's is mirrored, if I went to the mirror aisle, would everything be back to normal?
I'm gonna say yes so that we can move on.
Speaking of mirrors, which are on which aisle?
Well, it depends what kind of mirrors you're looking for.
Ones that will rectify the mirror problem in Lowe's.
Oh, those are on aisle -6.
Nice.
Specifically.
Or 9, if you're in Australia with a mirrored store. Listen, I got to tell you something, folks. This week has been a challenge for me. Well, I can't say this week, Wyatt. And you're right. The reason I can't say it is why, Wyatt. I just realized it hasn't spewed out of my mouth this week. Why can I not make reference to this week and how it's bothered me?
Oh, I don't really know.
How about because it just started?
I was literally going to say that, but look, if you're going to ask me some sort of question to answer in front of a live audience, it would be helpful to know what the question is ahead of time, so
Son,
I don't look like an idiot in front of the dozens of people watching us right now.
Wyatt, why stop now?
Because we don't want to lose our trump card. If we keep being dumb, they're going to expect it.
Yeah.
And then what are we left with? This?
I know.
This? No.
Okay. Well, here's what I was thinking. And by the way, does this podcast air at your Lowe's? And if it does, is it called a cast pod? Anyways, here's what I wanted to ask you guys.
I'm not going to dignify that with a response.
Well, son, who said it was dignified in the first place? You're always jumping to conclusions, and it's why we're losing our audience like a sieve.
Yes, how dare I ask for quality in this stream?
Listen, folks, last week Wyatt talked about working at Lowe's and he never wanted to work at the paint section. And the reason he doesn't want to work at the paint section is he couldn't stand the arbitrary names they gave the colors of the paint. Now, you tell me, you can go ahead and write it down here if you want to participate. We're here live, so if you want to talk, we might talk back. But do you think that this should cause you distress? For example, Wyatt, last week you said one of the colors is plum blue.
Plum dandy.
Plum dandy. Plum dandy. But what else? You didn't give us. Are there others, or was that the only one that sort of struck your fancy?
Listen. Let me just preface this by saying that the reason why it depresses me
You did say preface instead of preface. I just want to make sure I understand that. Did you say preface instead of preface?
Look, we had a 5-minute skit about cue cards. Is this really the best thing to be talking about?
I should have prefaced that. Okay, go ahead.
So to preface this.
Yeah.
The reason why it is so depressing for me to see these complete nonsensical, terrible color names is the knowledge that whomever, gotta be grammatically correct, whomever came up with those colors.
Wouldn't it be it ever? That way you're not presuming a gender, a sexuality.
Well, no. Like, literally, grammatically, whom is what you use when you're referring to a proper noun.
Oh.
And who, I don't really know when you use whom, actually. I'm not a grim.
I was just making a call about, the gender.
That's great.
Lunacy! That's gripped the United States. You do know that all the crazy is coming out of the United States, by the way. I mean, we, for the first time, are exporting lunacy that's being taken over by the whole world. The whole world's crumbling.
Isn't that good? Exporting means we're taking it out of the country.
No, because it doesn't go away. The cesspool remains and stagnant.
And it's not an export, though. You don't export.
We have so much of the BS in America that we have enough to export and not notice a difference.
Oh, no, that's a problem.
Tell me why you're going to have to get me through this, because last week Twitter dropped and I'm losing my caca. So I'm going to need you to quickly give me some way to survive, and that will be with colors from Lowe's. This segment, matter of fact, there should be a button for this, as this, we're going to make it a new extemporaneous session. And now Wyatt Stine brings you some more fancy named colors from Lowe's.
All right.
Wait, that was supposed to be a button with some kind of intro-y thing. Oh. Hey, if I did want to get dead crickets to feed my lizard, what aisle?
Outside lawn and garden.
Outside, got him! Okay, go ahead. Give us some of the names.
Anyway, so one of the ones that stuck out for me, basically the one that convinced me to stockpile them, is a color called grayish. That person, whoever came up with that, makes probably more money in a month than I make all year. And that is what's so depressing. I could do that job.
Yeah.
Give me that job. I will come up with the most nonsensical, brain dead colors, just like you do. Just give me boatloads of cash, like you do for them. Grayish. How many brain cells do you think it takes to come up with grayish as a name?
Why, you keep hitting your mic. Do you hear it in your headphones? Yeah, let's wear those from now on. Thank you.
Yeah,
okay,
cool.
He didn't have them on. And why would he? He's just the producer.
Anyway.
Grayish.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's not entirely gray. It's just grayish.
Okay, that's that. Yeah. Give me another color that is more like Plum Dandy, because that was funny.
Oh, gosh.
You don't have another one?
No, I have another one, but not one that's in that.
All right, go ahead. What's the next one?
Les Brown.
Didn't he used to have an orchestra in the 40s and toured with Henny Youngman? Les Brown and his orchestra? No. I'm thinking of something else. So you're telling me that if I went to Lowe's and I wanted to paint my studio brown, I could do it. But if I did that and I thought to myself, I love brown, but I wish it could be a little less brown, I literally wouldn't have to do anything other than mention it, and it'd be all mixed and ready for me.
Les Brown is basically the diet soda of browns.
Oh, that's crazy. So you're saying that if I drank less brown paint, I would lose weight?
You'd lose a lot more than weight, but yeah, you would.
Yeah, I'd lose my caca. Speaking of losing my caca, son, did you see what happened last week with Twitter and what Elon Musk did as and let me ask you this, son. Do you think there must be some upside to having $44 billion laying around so you can go purchase a huge social media empire just so that you can expose it to the world, the corruption, the technocrats who have colluded with the government, the Democratic Party, to try to stifle any information that would make their candidate look bad and thus affect an election, circumvent the rights and the freedoms of American citizens, treason, I might add, totalitarianism, despotism, everything evil that happens to people who don't want any ideas, thoughts, or subject matter spewed into the marketplace that has any dissent to their belief system, calling you a bigot and hateful and totalitarian. And if you say you're censoring my perspective, they call you conspiracy theory and a election denier when they were denying elections. There is no systemic racism in America, only systemic narcissism. It is ingrained in the leftist and now Democratic Party. If you ever hear a regular mainstream media talking head or Democrat candidate or leftist pundit call you a derogatory name or word or phrase, it is a guarantee that they are absolutely and precisely describing themselves. You're a bigot because he's a bigot. You're hateful because he's hateful. You're intolerant because he's intolerant. You're closed-minded because he's closed-minded. Wyatt, what are we going to do in America if we can't vote anymore, if we can't count on freedom anymore, if we can expose that an entire party colluded with a technology firm that puts out our ability to communicate and to have robust debate, we can no longer have any even pretense that they are in any way caring about the First Amendment or protecting our rights. Son, the entire hope for a free nation is resting on your answer. Now that we know what we are up against, how do we fix it? Son, I leave the floor to you.
Well, fixing any problem that has existed for this long and at this magnitude can take some time, if it's even doable. In the best solution may genuinely just be to build it all up and start from scratch.
How do we do that? Are you talking about what? Are you implying a revolution of some kind? Are you implying that somehow we're going to have to rise up as American citizens, the last of the truth tellers, and demand the leaders that we voted for, if they were allowed to count the votes and win, to actually check and balance despots and totalitarians and censors? Are you telling me that if we do everything we can by creating the militia of the mind to try to reason and hope and believe that there's somebody on the left, somebody in the Democratic Party who actually has some remote ember of virtue left, that maybe, just maybe, what makes this nation great is to allow the citizens to decide which direction we go? Is that what you're implying, Wyatt? Or did you have a blow to the head this morning and you're confused, confounded, and things smell odd to you and everything tastes metallic?
No. If diplomacy doesn't work, what other options are there?
I didn't know you were such a, I don't even know how to call you, son, a maverick, unhinged. Why? Do you consider yourself a bigot?
No.
Do you consider yourself intolerant?
No.
Oh, that's kind of an intolerant answer. How dare you consider yourself better than me? Listen, folks, we're sitting here since last week with this dump from Twitter that is, of course, getting zero mentions on mainstream media because they are only media. They're like a PR firm. We have completely and utterly lost free speech as far as it goes within what used to be considered journalism and balance. We don't have it. This is literally the United States of America. It breaks my heart when I say this. Breaks my heart when I say this because for so many years it was theory. It was theory. What if this happened? How would we stop it? But it won't get that far because we still have the First Amendment. We still have the Second Amendment, which is designed to defend yourself against totalitarianism. That's exactly what it was put there for. So we always assumed, and with the balance and with the pendulum going back and forth, that somehow you could always revote, bring things back into balance once they went too far either way, and try to find the middle ground. And if that has been stripped away, if you cannot, and I believe the Carrie Lake situation will be very telling because she clearly was stolen from Maricopa County. Clearly, it was an absolute coup. It was stolen, and I want to know where the Republican leadership is. Where are they? Why didn't they jump in and say, we will defend this, not because it's our party, but because it's unjust, and this is destroying America. You're the only guy. Left's not going to do it because they're winning. They keep doing it. They keep getting caught. Nothing happens. So either the Republicans are in on it, being paid off, or they have something on them by which they're afraid to speak. I don't know what's going on, but I don't know where else to turn. So that's why I thought I'd choose you, Wyatt. That's why I thought I'd choose you. Thoughts?
I mean, There's not really much else to say. Like, this is a developing thing.
So next month, when the Congress, the House is dominated by the Republicans, do you think they will do anything other than have some investigations and pound on the table and say you're mean and you're evil and you're corrupt, and then what will happen? Will anybody go to jail, Wyatt? Except for me, the Christian conservative white?
No, I don't think... I don't think no one would go to jail. The question is, where will the right people go?
Son, if I end up in jail, will you try with all your might to break me out?
If you've seen me before, you'd know I have not much might to give. I am a stick person, but I will try my best.
Okay.
An online petition should do the trick.
Cake with a file inside. Have you thought of that?
I can't bake.
All right. Well, here's the deal. Here's where we're at, guys. When Brad Stine Has Issues started, it was me standing up as a Christian conservative patriot, Second Amendment, First Amendment, originalist of the Constitution, defender of truth and freedom, last truth teller, speaking for religious liberties as the single most important liberty given to us in the Constitution, because it's your conscience, which is the single most protected right, because if I can think and act in public and private, which we now have a lawsuit going to the Supreme Court with some Christians simply saying I cannot make a wedding website for gay marriage because it goes against my religious beliefs, and of course, once again being sued, you don't see the right suing the other side over their refusal. We don't do it. We allow you to live and let live. It never is reciprocated because it's never been about the rights of the downtrodden or the marginalized. It's always been about the power, the control, and the domination of those who are the minority to control so they can have power. And then suddenly their domination, their oppression, suddenly is virtuous, and that's how they justify it. That causes me to want to respond in a very aggressive manner, in a very sort of just fully armed and fully loaded and fully protected. But I always have that little sort of safety valve known as Christianity, my faith, that allows me to have to stop, rethink, and try to find a way to do this that would be honorable to God. Why it's not easy? But we're in the Christmas season. I can't not talk about what's happening in America because I want you guys to be able to think and disseminate these ideas and try to find a way to bring this into the marketplace and see if we can, in fact, hang on to the republic that is dwindling away by day and by night. But with Christmas here, I thought that maybe, just maybe, we would not ever let this month become oppressive. We're not going to let it become negative. We're not going to let it tear us down. We're going to hope that it can give us hope, because that's what Christmas is. There's nothing like it. There's not another religious holiday that's worldwide that actually can unite all people of all persuasions, atheists, polytheist, Jew, Muslim, Buddhist. I mean, everybody can at least understand the idea of Christmas, which is love and giving, and there's something greater than us that we can hope for. So a little Facebook memory came up, and I decided to show it to you guys tonight. It's only 45 seconds, but I was in Israel in 2015, I believe, or 16, and I was doing a documentary called Boycott This. I think you can see it on Amazon Prime. But anyways, it was defending Israel against the BDS movement in Israel. So this is anti-Semitism, and this was 6-7 years ago. So I got to visit a lot of the places there, and I've decided that this month I have some stuff I took on my phone, and I'm going to show you clips of that this month, this December, this Christmas season of Israel, and sort of the place where our faith was born and was nurtured and was launched into the world to change the world forever. But today I'm going to show you just my little quick visit into the Church of the Nativity. If you've ever been to Israel, you'll know what it is. If you've not been there, it is historically, since I think the 2nd century, what Christians have believed was the place of Christ's birth. Now, I got to be honest, I don't know that they can prove that. I mean, it was since 2 centuries from his death did they designate that as the spot. So I'm sorry, but my magic background and my skeptical background says, if we're not sure this is it, then I don't know how to interpret it. I'm grateful it's there. I'm grateful for what it represents. It's a beautiful thing for people to come and see. But I don't know that there was a manger sitting right there. But nevertheless, it's in the vicinity of the single greatest moment and event in human history. And so it should be celebrated. And it is, with a beautiful and amazing Church of the Nativity, which I might have some other stuff of me walking in there, and I'm going to be sending you, and we're going to be seeing that throughout the podcast this month, okay? But this quick venture is going down the steps into the little alcove, and there's a little spot where they have this little sort of gold star on the ground with sort of a hole with a plexiglass cover, and they basically say this is the spot where Jesus was born. People get there, they're in awe, they get on their knees and they kiss the spot. I didn't do that, but I did watch it. I filmed it, and for your viewing pleasure, this is, in Israel, the spot that has been designated the birthplace of my Lord and Savior, the living God, Jesus Christ. Wyatt, take him to Israel, will you, son? I got to tell you, when you're there, you are in. I mean, it takes your breath away. It's a holy place. If you've never been in an actual holy place, that's it, and that is literally the representation of the faith of every Christ follower, or as the original church was called, the Way. There's nothing like it. And there's nothing like Jesus, folks. I mean, if you are watching me for the first time, you should know I'm a conservative, I'm a Christian. Most of you might know that. And I've got fans that love my comedy that are just patriots or conservatives, or maybe they just think I'm funny and they're not necessarily Christians. That's fine. I mean, obviously, I hope that, other people can like what I do. But that's what I have seen and have viewed and looked and researched and studied to discover what is the single greatest story of all time, and it's this, if it's true, and it's what is, and it certainly is the only documented religious figure that did things that have never been seen before by people who are actually there, and we have historical records written down in our holy book to prove that these were the actual people who were actually there. You don't have to believe that the stories are real. You can make up whatever you want, but this isn't some sort of retroactive appliance of miraculous things to a guy like the other religions have done to their people, but in fact is a representation of people who were there, who saw it firsthand and wrote about it. There's no other religion like this, because it's the only religion in human history that's actually represents the truth and of God really existed and revealed himself this way. Came through the lineage of the Israelites, the Jews, and was their Messiah, and yet even many of them didn't believe in him, and to this day they don't. So this is the big dilemma. This is the big question. This is the ultimate question about Christianity, not about whether the Christians are hypocrites. Of course we're hypocrites. Is that because we're hypocrites? No, it's because we're consistent. The very fact that Christians are hypocritical and do not live their faith effectively and consistently as the Bible would command them to do is simply proof that the Bible is true, because the Bible said there's none righteous, no, not one. Work out your salvation with fear and trembling. You're going to fail all the time because you're sinners. I mean, that's what makes it amazing grace, that God loves you in spite of your sin. Matter of fact, God, it's funny in a way, because God's saying you guys are so screwed up that I'm just going to die for you. I'm going to do all the work for you. I'm going to pay the price for you. And then I'll just accept my son's sacrifice as yours if you simply give your life to him. So it's a beautiful thing. It's an amazing thing. And no time is it more important to grasp it, to understand it, to go to church right now this month, to see the celebrations, to hear the songs and the stories. This is, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you're battling with, if that's the transgender thing, if it's the LGBTQ thing, if it's the black thing, it's the, you know, if it's the woman thing, if it's the, whatever it is that you think and are desperately seeking to give you peace and let you feel finally at rest by finding your identity and resting in that, and it still doesn't work, and it doesn't. It's because you found the wrong solution, because it's not a solution. It's a counterfeit to confuse you from the truth. And the truth will set you free. That's a very, very famous statement, one of the most famous statements in human history. Came from our Lord Jesus Christ. So I talk of these things because I want you to know these truths. If you're my enemy, you're welcome here, because I'm supposed to love my enemy. That doesn't sound right, doesn't it? Sounds kind of odd to love your enemy. It is odd. I don't want to do it. I can't stand people that are hateful and that want to harm me and steal my freedoms and my American opportunity to be free and to worship freely like the founders gave me. But my God doesn't allow me to do that, because he said, I died for you. I gave you grace. You don't deserve it. I'm going to have you pass it on so you get to be Jesus for somebody else so they can see what it looks like. Well, a lot of responsibility. And by the way, I suck at it, Wyatt. So do you. Do you suck at being a Christian?
Who doesn't?
I just said that.
Yeah, and I reiterated it.
All right.
But I said it last, so I get all the credit.
Plus, you got to use reiterate, which you love.
It's a fun word.
Yeah, it is.
I like to reiterate it.
Hey, White, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
I think there should be a color at Lowe's called reiterate.
And it's literally just whatever the last color you bought there was.
Yes! Nice! That's my son. He's fast, he's quick, he's dry. Listen, I got a special guest for you guys tonight that we're going to talk to. For many of you guys who have been watching for quite some time, last Halloween, you're getting a lot of laughs from that joke, Wyatt. For our last Halloween, a lot of people gave me a lot of claps and applauses and emojis, because we had Terry Holly on as a guest. Now, Terry Holly is a professional mentalist. This is the guy that pretends to read your mind and does a show for it. It's very interesting. For those of you who are familiar with my show, familiar with me, you know that I was a professional sleight of hand magician, that I know many of the top magicians in the world, including those who were the helpers and the confidants, and those who were used to help David Blaine, David Copperfield, Doug Henning, please for that. These were friends of mine. I know them and still know them. And so I have access to that world, magicians, sleight of hand artists, mentalists, ventriloquists, things like that. I love those type of people. I love artists. So I did an interview with Terry Holly, and I wanted to show it for Halloween. Now, he worked with Andre Cole, one of the top illusion creators in magic history, who was a Christian, who worked with Fellowship, Campus Crusade for Christ. His name was Andre Cole. He worked with him, and so he had helped write a book and talk about the idea of Jesus as God. And Andre, who was a professional magician and an illusion creator, actually wrote a book by trying to find out and prove that Jesus Christ was a fraud and just did magic tricks, and looked at him. And being a professional, he looked at how Jesus supposedly did these tricks, and he said it's impossible in 2,000 years ago, Bronze Age Israel, that a guy could have done the things he did. It's impossible, because I know how you do things, and you can't do that with modern technology, let alone those. Well, anyways, this guy talked about Jesus and miracles, and could they have been faked? And people loved the program so much. What you didn't know, and this is a surprise for you guys because it's Christmas, so I'm going to give you a lot of gifts. I had actually interviewed two magicians who were professionals. Terry Holly was a professional in the mentalism field and with some stage illusions. But I interviewed another guy who's an expert on sleight of hand, close-up magic. He actually works here in Nashville at a place called House of Cards, which is kind of like a private club. Well, it's not private. You can come in, eat dinner, very expensive, but similar to the Magic Castle, where different magicians perform in different areas of the space. And you can have a dinner, have some cocktails, watch some close-up magic, go see the parlor and see some cool magic. And he's a professional at that. And I interviewed him as well. Well, I could only use one interview, so I played Terry's. But I realized that with Christmas here, a lot of people, especially those who are curious, that stumble upon my show and they've heard of me, and usually they wanted to argue with me because they're atheists. But sometimes they find out, oh, I'm a nice guy. I don't really have anything against him. And as long as they're sincerely interested in Jesus and God and the whole transcendent exploration, I'm happy to have a conversation because I find it fascinating and crucial and important. It's the ultimate exploration as a human as to, is there meaning, is there teleology, and is there hope for an afterlife? And that's what I think really gives people pause, because if this isn't the end, if this is sort of just the launching pad of my eternal existence, and that there is something beyond this, where there is no more tears, no more hate, no more social media trolls, no more despair, no more death, if that place is true and really is where we belong, because it puts us into perfect alignment with our Creator, man, I want to know that, and I want to go. Well, you can. So I decided that as my first Christmas gift to you guys this month, I'm going to air the heretofore unseen interview with Terry Hedges, a close-up professional magician. And we are going to explore the idea of, was Jesus just a fraud who wanted to make all kinds of money creating a new religion, and did sleight of hand to give the illusion he was miraculous so he'd get followers, and of course he made no money, so he failed miserably. Actually was crucified, so that's a kind of a downer. Wyatt, if you're trying to start a new religion, they kill you. I'm thinking you failed.
Well, maybe you were just so good that everybody else was just jealous and didn't want you to have a success.
Covetousness.
Yes.
Okay. Well, anyways, he came back to life, which to me is a pretty good trick.
I mean, it really helps with the whole, if they kill you because you're too popular and you come back, that makes you even more popular, right?
And makes your enemy frustrated. I thought I killed this guy.
Like, oh, man.
I know. Well, anyways, that's what we're going to discuss tonight. I'm going to let you, who are believers, have an either more deeper understanding of your faith by somebody who's a professional magician and how he perceives who Jesus is, was, and could he have done the things he did by pretend. And for those of you who maybe are skeptics or non-believers, this might be interesting to you, I hope, that we can explore. Was Jesus just a magician, or was he doing miraculous things which would give him pretty good substantiation that he's in fact God? So that's what we're going to do with phase one of our first Stine Has Issues Christmas month edition. I hope you enjoy it. I will come back afterwards and we'll wrap it up. But and by the way, I've already been interviewing numerous people that are already in the can, more coming, and you're really going to like. So we got some great Stine Has Issues coming up with some great guests. And being as it's Christmas and people are home, I'm going to hopefully get some Nashville friends to come here and we'll film them where they're here live. That's what I'd like to do more of. But for right now, folks, sit back, grab some popcorn, and let's once again explore from another angle. Was Jesus a magician? Sleight of hand illusion? Or was he God? I bring you Terry Hedges. Wyatt, make him appear.
Abracadabra.
Well, as I said, this Halloween night, it's crucial that you are never recognizable. And so if for those of you who are confused, who is this? What has happened to God's comedy? Where did he go? Well, believe it or not, I'm an army man. So I wore this hat to completely disguise myself. And like Clark Kent, with some glasses and a hair slicked back, why he was unrecognizable as Superman. That's the look I'm going for, that beautiful nuance that only folks with brain damage were easily fooled. But I promised you that on this Halloween we would have a very special guest. And for those of you who are fans and have been watching from all over the world, all these Corona crazies that started this whole podcast, you all know that I started out as a professional magician. That was my profession for a number of years. And so I've been fortunate to have friends in that field that continue to be part of my little grid. And every now and again, I'll get with them and just reminisce about the world of sleight of hand and magic. It got me started in the business. I will always be indebted to that and grateful for it and enjoy watching it. I just don't do it professionally anymore. So I wanted to bring on someone who's became friends with a few years ago. He actually saw me here in Nashville. He lives in Nashville, and saw me at a taping at a television studio, and we just kind of somehow met and struck up a conversation. Come to find out, he was a local close-up magician and works at one of the top, really, establishments of magic and sleight of hand in the country, called the House of Cards in Nashville. So I'd like to welcome a very special guest, Terry Hedges, the man of $1 million fingers. How are you, brother?
Well, how are you?
I'm doing good. Listen, I appreciate you coming on, taking some time. I know that we had to pre-record this because you were actually on your way to the House of Cards. So was that the first professional magic venue that was dedicated to magic that you've worked, or did you work any other clubs prior to that?
No, that's really it's the first one that would fit that description.
Yeah. When I was young and lived in California, they had a private club called the Magic Island. That was in Newport Beach, California. And then they ended up having another club in Houston, I think, called Magic Island. It was a private club, similarly designed like the Magic Castle, but it was something where you could just buy a membership, whereas the castle kind of seemed, I think you got to be invited or something or other. I mean, I'm sure you've been there. But this was unique in that regard. And so it was fun to see the House of Cards come up here in Nashville, because suddenly it was another place that I could maybe go now and again and just remember that time in my life and how much enjoyment I've had in that. So let's find out a little bit about, and since you are a professional, you're doing this as we speak, let's kind of look at your take on magic and sleight of hand in the last, I don't know, number of years. It seems to have become more popular, certainly than when I was doing it, than ever before. What do you think has created such a renaissance in magic in the last 10 years or so?
I think honestly, it's people finding their love of it on television. You've got so many television shows now that have really brought the quality of it to life. You've got America's Got Talent. You've got Penn and Teller's Fool Us. Several places where people actually get to see good sleight of hand magic.
Right. I feel like the first time that something really triggered in my mind, because remember, I was in the 80s when I did magic, and there were some excellent magicians, some who are still around doing it, but it was, I don't know, it was confined to special places like the Magic Castle, Magic Island, special clubs or restaurants where people would perform. That's where I did most of my stuff, was what they used to call close-up magic or table hopping. But
I kind of moved on when I became a comic, and I just kind of abandoned it and only found it years later as a hobby, and actually enjoyed it more as a hobby than when I did it professionally. But what really triggered in me something that had somehow never been able to be cracked in the arts that put magic in a different level was David Blaine. When his first special came out, he did one unique thing that no one had ever figured out before, and that was emphasizing the camera on the reaction of the crowd instead of the magician with a tux sitting at a table with a bunch of girls around him doing magic. I mean, do you remember when David Blaine hit the scene, and do you remember that as being kind of a watershed moment for giving a whole new, I don't know, exotic flavor to close-up?
I think definitely people realized in seeing reactions that, they were able to emotionally connect better because they could see that other people reacting. It almost gave them a permission to have that same type of feeling and realize that, wow, if I was there, I would feel that way.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny how, and again, magic is such a unique subculture. You and I are familiar with most of the well-known names and innovators in sleight of hand, but most people would have no idea who most of these guys are. They're just within our little community. But when you would watch them on teaching tapes or on performance tapes, it was always at a table, close-up mat, tux usually, some model-looking girls sitting around, and there would be this very polite applause, very subdued, very gratuitous, great magic, but it just didn't feel vibrant. And here comes David Blaine saying, this is real. I'm doing real magic. And people believed it, and it changed everything. And then suddenly close-up magicians were winning $1 million on America's Got Talent. I'm going, this is crazy. So I just wonder if anything happened. And again, we're talking to laymen. So the people watching this show they like me as a comic, and they like what I do, but I'm sure they love magic. Most people do, but they don't really understand, obviously, how it works. They don't know what it takes to become a magician or to learn the technique. So can you describe what it is about magic, which is, by the way, one of the oldest performance art forms in history? What is it about that sets it apart from, for example, singers, dancers, actors, all in the kind of the same world, but magic gets its own category? What is that uniqueness that sets it apart?
Well, I think that, with the other arts, you are transported in other ways. Magic transports you in ways that the others don't. You get caught up in a song and the words and the performance of it. I think for magic, you are taken down a road that you think is reality, and at some point you are suddenly jerked over to where reality really is, and there is that sense of, oh my goodness, what just happened? Is that even possible? Well, it must be. I was here. I just experienced it. So I think that really is what sets it apart, that sense of wonder, that sense of surprise, that's not something you get with other art forms so much.
Well, I noticed that I read a book years ago called The Death and Resurrection Show. And it was trying to understand what caused the whole concept of the theater to exist. Why do we have a theater we go to and watch people pretend to be acting out a scene? Why do I go listen to somebody sing? Why do I go watch somebody do magic? I mean, we take it for granted. Yeah, you're going to the theater, going to go be entertained. But it had to start somewhere. Now, we know you can go back to the Greek theater, and we can go back to very old history, Egyptians. But this guy was taking it deeper and deeper. And his premise was he believed that all art and entertainment came from shamanism, came from the witch doctors or the special shamans within tribes who were trying to recall and facilitate the memory of the tribe, the history of the tribe, the stories of the tribe. And they would do that under very special conditions. They'd go to a very special hut or teepee or tent, and there would be some candles or, animal fat tallow being, lit, and it would create very odd, visuals with the lighting. And then he would try to tell the story, and then he would do tricks or demonstrations with using sticks or rocks or leaves, and somehow give the illusion that he was demonstrating something miraculous to emphasize, I've got powers that nobody else has. That's why they gave him the power to try to heal them or give them this and that. They might sing songs that remembered a hunt or something. Anyways, it all came from this mystical place. And then you begin to move that into this idea that the theater is creating godlike experiences. You are the actors, the performers are on a stage, so they are higher than the audience normally. They are given special lights to give them a very special illumination and a glow and a feel that these guys don't get. Matter of fact, you usually bring the house down. They're put into darkness and the light is up there. You get an amplified voice, so you get a very much more, powerful ambiance of audio. And then, of course, they're given the particular accolades that we are coming to watch you. So they're given this sort of spiritual dimension for being the guy that we're all coming to see. Well, what are the terms we use? The American Idol. Well, idol means something. It means the replacement of something that the transcendent God, as something we worship. I idolize you. I put you in a place of the sacred. And I found that to be such an interesting, probably very truthful concept as to why the entertainment business is given such sense of worship by those who are there, because you're put in that position of being a very special human being. Well, nothing does that like magic, because magic is literally counterfeiting supernatural. It's pretending to do a miracle. And that's why I brought you on to this particular podcast and this evening as an expert in that particular field that sets it apart, the field that pretends it can do miracles. So first off, what is it about? And just to be fully upfront, for people that know me, they already know, but I should let them know about you. Both of us are believers in Jesus Christ. We believe that he was actually God and actually did miracles because he actually has control over nature. Not every magician is a Christ follower, certainly Penn and Teller are evangelists for atheism. And there's a lot of atheists in magic, but there's also a lot of believers. So full disclosure, you're a fellow believer, though that's not the reason I brought you on. But because of that belief system, I thought it gave you a much deeper ability to analyze what we are about to discuss. So, first off, the idea of the supernatural being counterfeited. Is there a danger in that being used in a way to manipulate? And could that be part of what was used, let's say, in cults or in false religions historically, to take control over people by giving the illusion you have a power that they can't overcome? Does that make sense? Does that seem like a little bit overstretched for a guy that does a card trick?
Well, I think what we have to realize is that everybody tries to use everything, regardless of what it is. So if you have the ability to speak with authority and with power, and you have nefarious intentions, you will use that to try to garner people following you, listening to you. The word abracadabra is actually Hebrew. It means I create according to as I speak. It comes from the Old Testament concept of blessings and curses. But the idea was with Jacob and Esau, for instance, that Esau came to his father and said, "You just gave away my blessing. You got to take it back and give it to me." And his father said, "I can't. It's already been spoken. It is already becoming true. It is already becoming real. I can't take it back." And so the idea that our words and our actions have power,
Yes.
regardless of whether they may be with a deck of cards or with coins. I mean, just look at our political system. It's all about words that try to create a reality for people. And that's just the way that's the way human beings operate. We try to take advantage of what we have. So it's really about intention.
Yes. I'm reading a book now that is all about the history of ventriloquism and how it deals with the fact that the history of deism or the supernatural being was that they were never seen but only heard, that the voice of the disembodiment but the voice came from something, a substance, whereas if I see the deity, I can confine it, I can put walls around it. But if it's just
Name it.
voice, yes. So if it's like the Oracle of Delphi, if it's just the voice, it comes from the ethers, and yet it has substance in its vocalism. As Christians, we believe that all substance came to existence through the word. It was a spoken, mystical experience that only God would understand because he's the one that created it. But that voice created substance. I mean, it's really deep when we try to understand, what this all means when as those of us who exist and try to find, teleology in the day-to-day. And I think religion is really the only access we have to try to make sense of the deeper things. Science can't teach us what we ought to do, only what happened and what causes that natural response. But it can never tell us where it came from and why we should act the way we do. So one of the things that I felt was important to bring you on today, and it was really the ultimate crux of this whole interview, but I wanted to get kind of a backstory of just this whole odd world of close-up or sleight of hand or illusion or whatever term you use, because it's foreign to most people and yet interesting to them. And it's a weird, it's a weird art. It's the one art that I can't show you how to do it. In other words, I could do a guitar lick and then the guy goes, "Oh, how do you do that?" "Well, come over here. You just do this, this, and this," to a layman. Or I can listen to you sing. But when a magician is effective and has accomplished his mission at the highest rank, you didn't do anything because you're hiding your skill the whole time. That must get frustrating.
Oh, it can. It depends, I guess. There's actually a argument within Magicdom as to how much of your skill you should show or not show, especially within card magic. Doing something that's kind of flourishy, I think is what we would call it. And the question is, should we show that? Does that diminish the amount of feeling within someone that they're just saying something that's magical, or now are they just going to count it down to, oh, that's just, he's really, really good with a deck of cards?
Yes.
So there's always that question.
Well, it's kind of like, and for those of you who don't know, flourish is I don't know, maybe it transcends into other realms, but within the magic community, flourish simply means sort of an artistic demonstration of a skill set, like juggling. You take the card, you cut them with one hand, you shuffle with one hand, and you're showing you do something skillful with these typical objects that everybody's used cards, but not everybody can do that kind of stuff. So you know immediately, this is an expert with this particular item. So I want to talk to you because it is Halloween and I wanted to have a Halloween special. I wanted to talk to you about something that has bothered me forever from the time I started. My first professional art form was magic. I performed close-up magic. I learned it as a kid, as a teenager, and I actually got a friend of mine's dad owned a restaurant in a little farm town in Indiana when I was my senior year in high school. I went to the guy, said, hey, can I come into your restaurant? I'm talking about small town, 2,000 people. And just every Tuesday night, come and work magic at the tables. And I'd read Bert Allerton's book about close-up magic and found out you just make a card and you stick it on the table and they say, for $5, come on over. And I'll do, well, nobody had $5, so I made it like $3. I just wanted to do magic and have a place to go perform. Nobody would ask me to come over. So I would just go up and say, you want to see some tricks? But I saw a couple there from my church. And I went to see the woman and I said, hey guys, how are you? And I like these people. And I said, hey, you want to see some magic tricks? I was so excited to show them my little skill set. And I'll never forget, the woman looked at me and she goes, you know, Brad, magic is of the devil. And I remember just being so devastated because I just wanted to show her what I could do. I'm 18 years old, didn't know this was going to be a problem in my life as a Christian. And that somehow they had associated the biblical command to avoid magic, witchcraft, sorcery, necromancy, and all of these sort of ancient tools and formulas that humans have tried to find access to the supernatural, and somehow had decided that nothing is more devious and more destructive to the human soul than a card trick. I felt like that was a stretch, but nevertheless, it was kind of devastating to me. And yet, over the years, I've watched it happen over and over again. So I want to get your opinion. You study theology, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm a master's.
Yes. So this is your ballywick. I mean, this is your skill set. The perfect person to ask and answer this question, because you're an expert at sleight of hand and an expert in understanding the ways of the living God, who has set some rules into place and some things to avoid. So can you once and for all take a little time to help those out there who are concerned that somehow David Blaine or David Copperfield is really in league with the devil? No, it's pretend, and how that's not only not dangerous, it can be entertaining and is not forbidden by Scripture. Good luck.
Okay. Well, I think so. I will tell you a story. I was performing in Indianapolis. Every time I perform in a church, because I'm also a preacher, so every time I'm there, usually I tell this story because there's typically going to be a person or two at least that might have some nervousness about part of what I do. And so I just say, I realize there's some of you out there, but I wanted to tell you about a woman that has that same problem. I met her in Indianapolis. I was doing some shows in the area, and there's a little Christian flea market there. And I noticed it, and I thought, after I get done with my morning, I'll head in there, see maybe if I find something I like. And the woman who owned the store was the cash register lady. And she's what you would call a chatty Cathy, if you know what I mean. And so I bought something, and she's like, well, hello, how are you? I haven't seen you in here before. Are you from the area? I said, well, no, ma'am, I'm from Nashville. She said, well, what are you doing up our way? And I said, I'm doing some shows. She said, shows? Really? What kind of shows do you do? I said, I do magic shows. And she said, you're a magician? I said, I am. She said, you're a Christian? And I said, yes, I am. She said, how can you do that? And I said, ma'am, doing this as long as I have, I realize you have one of two issues. I said, less likely, but some people still think perhaps that what we do nowadays is the same thing they condemned in the Old Testament as witchcraft, which was really trying to talk to the dead. And she said, oh, well, I know it's not that. I said, well, then you probably have an issue with the whole deceiving people thing. And she said, yes. And I said, well, ma'am, you have to realize all kinds of deception isn't wrong. It's not sinful. And she said, well, I don't understand. I said, well, please don't take offense, but it's the best example I can give you. Do you wear makeup? And she said, yes. And I said, a lot of women do, but I have yet to see one walk out their front door with a sign around their neck saying, I don't normally look like this. And I said, it's not a bad thing. It's for many, it's a good thing. I said, but I bet you've done this too. Have you ever left your light on when you go out for the evening? Why do you do that? You do it to deceive the criminal into thinking you're still home. I said, and God even uses deception in the Bible. He and guides people to use deception. Think about the story of Gideon and trying to confuse the other army into thinking there were more of him than what there really was. And I said, I'm able to take a talent that God has given me and share the truth of who Jesus is through that. It's really all comes down to intention. I mean, even the whole idea of idol worship that you talked about earlier, if you actually look in the Old Testament, idol worship really wasn't about worshiping another God as much as it was about using something to try to control God, which Christians can very easily begin to do simply by their church attendance. Well, God, I came to church, therefore you owe me. Mm. Or God, I read my Bible, therefore now, give me that Mercedes. And even those things can become a means of trying to control God as opposed to a way of expressing our trust in God. So a lot of times we want things to be very cut and dry, black and white. And God says, no, it's really about the intention behind what you're doing that really is what I care about, not necessarily this specific thing.
No, I like that. It's really, I love the analogies of the makeup or light, how sometimes deception isn't necessarily devious. It's actually designed to be constructive and perhaps even strategic. So I think that's an interesting idea. So just to help the people get in case we missed any angle that they're wanting to ask. So in reference to and I'm sure you would have to know this as thoroughly as anybody, because not only are you in the ministry, but you're a magician, so you have to be able to defend this. So you must have gone much deeper than maybe a lot of other folks. So is there any reference to what we consider first off, is the word magic used in the Bible, or is it always witchcraft?
It's always talking about some form of trying to contact the dead. That is the typical undercurrent of most everything that we read in Scripture, where it's saying this is not what you are supposed to do. And the reason behind it is, in trying to do this, you're not really trusting God. Mm. And so that's really what the undercurrent of all of it is. If you're trust God.
Right.
And don't do these things that are saying, well, I need to know this. I can't trust God for the future, or I can't trust God that he is taking care of my loved ones. I need to try to get some advantage by doing that.
So when you talk about, we know, like, for example, seances are blatantly seeking spirits or of the dead who are going to give us information. But when you talk about magic, let's look at the magicians of Pharaoh's court. They were doing tricks or illusions or miraculous things that aren't really having to do with the dead. I mean, these are specifically phenomenon that seems to be supernatural. So what is your take on that? Were they court magicians that were deceivers that were really doing sleight of hand, and they were over their head going, holy smoke, what's this guy doing? I mean, he's not using our technique. Or do you think they actually had supernatural powers at all?
My take on that is they were basically court magicians. And, I think actually the movie Prince of Egypt actually does a pretty good job of kind of sharing their skill level. They were very good at what they did. They were able to deceive. And again, it was the intention. Why were they doing it? What was their intention? What were they trying to do? What were they trying to get out of it? Mm. And to get power, to seek power, to make people think that they had powers they didn't have.
I would say that part of where I think if somebody wants to hear, some people just, the legalist has this sort of precondition that this is simply there is no nuance to it. But clearly, as you just said, power. I mean, most magic of the past, they were trying to say, we have a supernatural power by which you must worship us or listen to us or behave what we tell you or let us lead you because we have a power, so you can trust that. There's not a magician alive today that is in any way trying to fool you into thinking that this isn't done to entertain, that we are creating this sort of fun illusion of the miraculous, which is, like you said, it causes awe. To me, it's part of our God proof. Why would we be in awe that this coin disappeared here and appeared there, or this card was here, now it's over there? I mean, unless we know that when the natural is circumvented, there has to be a higher power outside of the material world to allow that. And it's sort of this instinct that we understand that can happen without a miraculous event. And so the magician is basically letting us feel the awe without experiencing the actual miraculous. I find it interesting, too, that some of the atheist magicians, and Penn and Teller maybe being the most famous, are very adamant that you not fool people or give the illusion that you have, for example, psychic powers. That's one big one for the mentalists, or those who solely can read minds or predict the future and do these mental-like effects. As you know, and I know because of the literature, and a typical person wouldn't know, that's a big sort of confusion for some people, because some guys are like, no, I want you to think I can really do this. That's what makes it so amazing to people. This guy can read my mind. And others feel it's unethical to do that. And I always found it interesting that atheists are so concerned about ethics, and yet there's nothing within the foundation of their belief system that even has ethics. This is something they've chosen to accept as though it has value and it has more virtue. But they have to borrow from Christianity, if they're Western, which they are, which says honor and virtue comes from the Spirit of God who made us in his image, and thus we're emulating that. So do you find some hypocrisy in the magic world in trying to sort of believe that, yes, I want to trick you and fool you, but I want to make sure you know it was a trick and there really was no supernatural, because it's very important you understand that there's no such thing as the supernatural?
I think for me, again, it comes back to intention, and you've got certain people who their character, they want you to feel that way. They feel like that's their shtick. I want to appear dark. I want to appear like I have powers, and that'll gain me more following. For me, I find that as something that tends to push people away more than it draws them in. So when I'm performing, people realize I'm here. I'm using skill to fool you, and it's going to be fun. And I'm not for once going to make you think that somehow I'm able to, do something miraculous.
But they suspend their disbelief to enjoy it. I mean, they have to let it be fun, or it wouldn't work. There has to be almost let me pretend with you, or there's nothing for us to be doing here. It's just a puzzle. So let's sort of conclude here then with maybe the most crucial exploration of this expertise of yours. So what's to say that Jesus Christ wasn't a magician? He was just doing magic tricks to give the illusion that he could do. Turning water to wine is a very classic magic trick within continental Western magic, probably in other Asian, Eastern magic as well. But he did a lot of things that I guess could be faked or duplicated or not. And how do we discern between the fraud and the one time, apparently, in history where this was actually taking place?
I guess I probably would take a very different look at the reasoning, because I would say that the thing that made Jesus different wasn't those things.
Wasn't him doing the miraculous?
It wasn't him doing those miraculous things. You know, we have, there are certain things that happen when Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead and he cries before it happens. I've heard people say, now look, Jesus is crying. That shows his humanity. And then he raises Lazarus from the dead, and that shows that he's God. And if I'm in the vicinity, I typically go, well, wait a minute, why isn't it the other way around? Because if you're going to say raising people from the dead automatically means is God, we're going to have to start looking at some of the Old Testament prophets and start talking about them differently, because they did miraculous things too. The thing that made Jesus different, the thing that he says makes us different, makes us like him, is not the supernatural things he did. It was the profound love that took him to the cross, a love that says, I'll lay my life down for you instead of trying to take advantage of you through whatever I'm doing, whether it's magic or speaking or whatever else, but that you will come to understand who God is because you have experienced the love of Christ. And that's what set Jesus apart. That's what made him so different. That was the one-off that we never saw before and we will never see again.
Right. Well, clearly, the the miraculous things that he accomplished, and you know, you're right about the prophet, but I think all of that was supposed to be an indicator that he had access to controlling nature, that he was bigger than a human, that I can circumvent this natural order because I created it. And this is to justify I have the right to make these claims, because there's lots of cult people and Messiah figures throughout history said, I'm God. And it's like, well, how do I know? How do I know which guy's not just another guy claiming to be God? And so I think that certainly gave him a unique presence, because people were flocking to get healing. But as a magician and understanding the techniques, I mean, could what's recorded of him in the New Testament have been duplicated by magicians? I mean, is it feasible? Because I've heard other magicians over time try to discover how he could have done it, and they reach a conclusion he must have been God, because you can't fake what he did. There were some things that were impossible to do, knowing what we know about the magical techniques. Does that make sense to you?
I would agree with you. I don't think there is any way that everything that was recorded of him doing could have been done outside of the actual power of God.
Yes. What would be the biggest? Raising somebody from the dead? That's a big one.
I would say that's probably it, because that's what made no sense to the culture at the time. The Pharisees, they wanted to kill Lazarus as well, because Lazarus was the proof. I mean, they seemed to think he was the ultimate proof that Jesus just might be the Messiah, and they didn't want the kind of Messiah Jesus wanted to be or was.
So as I leave you on this Halloween night, your last sort of parting insight to anyone out there who still struggles with if they should even be allowed to watch magic or illusion. You are saying, as an expert in theology and in illusion, what?
It is not about the action itself. It is about the intention behind it. And so no matter what it is, if it's being used to try to take something away from others, whether it be the truth, whether it be to take money or influence, no matter what it is, that's wrong. But we can't say something is just wrong on its face. It's always the intention behind it, because anything can be used. Again, even the Bible itself can be used with an intention to try to take away from other people.
Wonderful. Well, you are at House of Cards. Are you there every week, or is that some place that somebody could come see you?
Absolutely. I'm usually there between 3 and 4 nights a week. Usually you can find who's working each evening on their website.
And what is your website, in case somebody in the Nashville area might want to book you or bring you in for Christmas coming up and so forth?
Absolutely. My website's my email is magic@terryhedges.com. you can contact me through there. And yeah, absolutely. Let me know. Would love to be a part of your event or festivities.
Well, thanks so much, Terry. I appreciate your time and wisdom and just your history of understanding this, what can be a very misunderstood art form. And really, if you just let it go and go enjoyment, there is nothing as fun as going to watch some good close-up magic. It will blow your mind. And it's wonderful that we have that accessible to anybody who's open to having some fun. God bless you, brother.
You as well.
All right. Thanks so much, Terry. See you.
Bye.
So, as you can see, it is fun and interesting to look at Jesus from a perspective of somebody who knows how to fake the miraculous. You know, after talking about this Twitter thing, after examining the state of America and its challenges and watching the voting problem in Arizona, clearly a stolen election. I mean, I don't want to come on every Monday and just be in despair, right? So I wanted to take the time for Christmas and the Advent to be uplifting, to find some good news, to seek to find some hope, because that's what this month means. It's hope. And so, listen, I got to talk about what's really going on, because that's what this was all about from the very beginning. When it started with the Corona cult, was let's talk about truth. Let's decide what it means to be an American. And so, you know, I'm going to talk about these things because they're what's happening, and they're part of what has to do with us even having the freedom to have these podcasts. So, listen, next year, let's always look forward to it being a better year. Let's always believe that something great's going to come from it. And that's the way I want to look at it. So, don't be in despair. Be inspired. And again, as a believer, I mean, I know in the end, God wins every time. I know where I'm going. I'm secure in that. That is going to be beyond my understanding. And so realizing I'm just passing through, being very clear that I'm grateful for America, but don't worship it. I want to defend it, but not worship it. Never give up. Never give up until you're out of ammo, until you have tried every possible option, until you're not around anymore. Believe for the best. Believe for the incredible. Believe for the miraculous. Believe that God will shine his light and give us a miraculous third great awakening. Believe that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Believe that we haven't finished yet, that we're not done yet. Believe that this experiment can still survive. Let's believe that. Let's take this Christmas season to believe in the birth of something beautiful and amazing, the re-remembrance of America. You know, again, Christmas is coming. I know that this maybe not be of interest, but with the end of the month and the last opportunity to get a tax break from donating to my ministry, I'm still selling, being a Christian without being an idiot, $55 for a signed copy to whomever you choose. That's a donation to the ministry, and I gave you that gift in thanks for that. And just trying to raise the ability, hopefully this next year, let's see what happens, to be able to go into places that want me, and even those who can't afford it. That's kind of my goal for next year, is to be able to be self-sustaining, reach a place where I can pay Wyatt, I can pay rent, I can take care of things without having to worry about income from outer sources. And if I can do that, then again, this thing will grow little by little. I have some meetings and some potential opportunities for where this podcast might go. You guys have got me here. You're the ones that have been along for the ride. You're the ones that have donated. You're the ones that have prayed. You're the ones that watch and make me feel like there's something here worth fighting for. You know, I need you to share this afterwards. I need you to tell all your friends. I mean, we can always circumvent the algorithms. simply by sending these out on our own. Send them on any kind of social you have. And if you think there's something amazing here, or something wonderful here, or at least worth watching as much as any other podcast, help us out. But I'm grateful, always, always, always grateful for you. Wyatt, aren't you? I mean, aren't you grateful too when they show up and come and say hi?
Yep, it's like a Christmas miracle every Monday. I was trying to make it sound like nice and all, but I think that made it a bit too campy.
It was campy. Now, had you had some Christmas bells, maybe a little jingly, something with some kind of, or even just the smell of gingerbread cookies, or do you have any kind? Nothing, no jingle.
I don't have any
Nothing.
jingle bells.
No.
I don't have anything. But what I do have,
Yes.
I do have a soundboard,
Yeah.
and I do have a few buttons to press.
Okay. Can you press a button for us as we get ready to sign off, son, so these people know how much we love them?
Yep.
Okay, so it's Christmas, Wyatt. Let's let them go out with a Christmas launch as we move into December.
Yep.
Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Stine Has Issues.
Well. Sorry, folks. He's my son. I'm stuck with him. God bless you. See you next week. Oh, yeah, and I'm putting the woke back to sleep.